All right, so hey, people of God, this is Rashana B back with On My Way Up movement, and I'm back with an awesome word. So, yesterday in my prayer time, as I was praying, I asked God, was there anything specific that He wanted me to chat with y'all about? And immediately on my phone, through the Bible app, Ezekiel chapter 20 popped up. And so I go in to read it, and when I read it, I knew that this was in reference to the political climate of America right now. We have some very controversial, sensational presidential candidates. Pretty much most Americans, if not all, are at the edge of their seat, biting their nails right now, wondering how is this about to go. And so I know that God wanted me to speak on this because a lot of us are distracted by, skin tone and sex. And so we're distracted by, some of the things that are being pushed out for us to side with certain sides. But here's the thing. I'm not crazy about either candidate, to be honest with you. But as a child of God, we should subscribe to who is pushing the lesser evil. What I mean by that is this. We know that pro-choice, I don't care how you dress it up, abortion is child sacrifice. In Ezekiel chapter 20, the Bible talks about, God talks about how He gave His people over, His Israelite people over to the command, to the laws and decrees of the land, decrees and laws that He knew they could not live by. Meaning this, I gave them over to laws and decrees that I knew would destroy their lives. I knew they wouldn't be blessed by these laws and decrees. He says, I'm paraphrasing in verse 26 of chapter 20, I gave them over to the full misery and extent of idolatry, so much so that they started sacrificing their own sons. He set them up to lose. He set them up to not experience life in abundance. He set them up. He allowed them to be given over to it. It wasn't necessarily that He made the laws and decrees. It was their perversion, their idolatry that led them into the horrors of child sacrifice. God talks about sacrificing first fruits. They started sacrificing their firstborns because they were looking around at the idolatrous nations, and they had started to subscribe with the laws and the decrees of the land. And out of God's anger and wrath, He didn't even pull their coattail. He let them do it. He let them wallow in it. He didn't extend any mercy. He allowed them to be in that thing and suffer those horrors. And so what I want you to understand is that the fact that Kamala is so passionate about abortion, that should be a red flag to you as a child of God. Because we know how God feels about human sacrifice, child sacrifice. We know what He feels about same-sex marriages. And by letting her in office, because if you have not discerned yet, she's a witch. By letting her in office, you guys, we are subject to the laws and the commands that she put on the earth. Well, in the U.S. in this case. And as children of God, yes, God is going to protect us and cover us. And yes, He's going to handle us, with a clear distinction from those that are not His. But we will be affected by the laws and the decrees of this land. And by you casting your lot in with her, you are subscribing to her idolatrous nature. You are subscribing to the witchcraft. And what we do not want is for America to be giving over to these laws and decrees. What we do not want is to suffer as a country that has built an altar to idol gods, because that's what she's going to do. Now, America has a very bloody history, don't get me wrong. But one thing, though, about America is that there was a covenant forged between God and America. And I believe that that's why America has always been great. Only because of the strength of that covenant that was forged with God has made America great. But if we were to allow Kamala into office, there would be a different altar raised. There will be a different covenant forged with a different God. There will be repercussions for that. Okay, there will be curses that will run rampant in the land. Now, we know the state of America currently. It will be worse by 100. And no, I'm not fear mongering. This is a fact. There are curses that are written in the Bible when given over to idolatry and witchcraft. Okay, we know that same-sex marriage is an abomination to God. Again, I'm not crazy about either candidate, but I know as a child of God that he was leading me to see this from a spiritual standpoint. We're distracted by the fact she's black. Those of us who are black, those of us who are African American, we're distracted with that. You know, we're distracted with the fact that this is a woman, and we're looking at it like, man, it's just another sister, man, let's get her in there. But we're not looking at the spiritual implications of this election. Okay, this is literally the enemy trying to out this country's covenant with God and reinforce or install his covenant with him. People of God, this election is nothing to play with. I shared in my community the video about how Kamala feels about third trimester abortion. I shared also in my video the fact that she lied and said she didn't know anything about third trimester abortion. And you had people on the video that were calling and making appointments and saying they were 38 weeks pregnant and were they eligible for an abortion. And yes, they were. There was also a piece in the video where there was a politician that was trying to fight for the rights of a baby who survived a third trimester abortion. Okay, there are some babies who live 45 minutes after the abortion attempt. And a nurse talked about how she watched that baby struggle for 45 minutes for he or she life. And do you know that Kamala was one of the first ones at the top of the list to sign against resuscitating those babies? Again, indifference is one thing, but why is she so passionate about it, about the babies dying, the death of the babies? That is because this is spiritual, you guys. This is witchcraft. This is sacrifice. This is child sacrifice that's being implemented, that she's trying to implement. Don't be fooled by these fancy names, pro-choice and all this kind of stuff. Don't be fooled by that. You don't want to be one of the ones who cast your lot in with her. You don't. You don't want to be one of the ones that God allows to be given over to the laws and the decrees of this land and experience the repercussions of these laws and decrees to its full extent in misery. You don't want to be one of those ones who subscribe to it. I'm telling you, please pray about this. This is spiritual. This is not about sex. This is not about race. This is not about money, $6,000 child tax credits and all that. This is not about that. All of that is to appeal to your senses, distract you and desensitize you, and so that you don't see what's going on. People, please pay attention. These are critical times. So I hope this word blessed you. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. Tell me what you all think about my content, and I'll be back with another word.